Hello everyone, it's Maive. Welcome back to my channel for another fantasy tutorial. Today we'll be making witches and wizards back to school miniatures, partly inspired by Harry Potter and by the magical world of witches in general that I find so fascinating. If you like witches too and would like to see how I made what you see in this trunk, then keep watching. I'll leave some links to some materials in the description. To make the trunk, you're going to need wooden lolly sticks. I cut mine 4 cm long, but you can adjust that to your liking, and you're going to need one set of 4 for the base and another set for the lid. Next you want to glue the sticks together, and for this I'm using Aleene's tacky glue. Wipe the excess glue off and let them dry completely. For the base, you're going to need 2 sets of short sticks measuring roughly 3.3 cm and 2 sets of long sticks measuring 4 cm. Stick them together and only when they're completely dry, sand the edges. I also like to sand the top and bottom to get rid of any bits of glue and to get a smooth finish. Now you can glue them to the base. For the lid it gets even easier because you only need 1 stick for the sides. Measure them against the lid, trim them and glue them after sanding the rough edges. Once the glue is dry, you can paint your trunk with acrylic paints. I'm using burnt orange for the outside, which gives the wood a gorgeous mahogany colour, but you can use any colour you want. And for the inside I'm using gold ochre because my trunk is a Gryffindor trunk. To allow your trunk to open and close, you're going to need hinges. I sanded the surface of both the hinges and the wood so that the glue had something to hold on to. In retrospect, I think it might be better to do this before you treat the wood, and initially I used super glue, but they came off so many times that in the end I tried Aleene's tacky glue and so far, so good. Here I'm just sticking strips of paper that I painted with gold alcohol ink. If you have metallic paper or gold acrylic paint, you can use that too. And you can add these wherever you want on your trunk. I shaded the sides of the paper with black acrylic paint to make the strips appear thicker. Using a bowl tool, I poked lots of dots on the paper so I knew where to glue the metal studs. I've had these studs for years and I bought them for my nails, so you can look them up typing in nail art metal studs. Then I used a needle to poke a keyhole shape. If you want, you can paint the studs black and add some more shading to make the trunk look worn. Once the paint was dry, I glazed it with water-based varnish. To make the wand, I trimmed a toothpick and filed the end. Next, I separated the strands in a piece of jute string and glued that around the thicker end of the wand to make the handle. You can also coat the string with glue and wrap it around the wand as you twist it. Once the glue is dry, you can paint it with acrylic paints. I used the same colour I used for the outside of the trunk and black. Then you want to glaze it to protect the paint. For the broom, I used a wooden sculpting tool. I had two in the same style, just in different sizes, so I went for the smaller one. You can also use a manicure stick or trim the handle of a paintbrush. For the bristles, I cut lots of pieces of jute string and again separated the strands. Once you have a big bunch, place the end of the broom on the bristles and tie a couple of knots. Now give your broom a trim and glue the bristles to the shaft. Do the same with the top. Next I brushed on a mix of alien tacky glue and water to stiffen and set the bristles, and you can use your fingers to twist them and give the broom a bit more shape. Remove the knots and use head pins to hold the bristles in place. I used antique bronze ones, but you can use any colour you want. I added a bit more glue to shape it, and once it was completely dry, I added colour using black and brown acrylic paint. To finish, I applied a layer of glaze to protect the paint. To make the inkwell, I sandwiched black polymer clay between two sheets of translucent polymer clay, trimmed the excess, poked a hole and baked it for 10 minutes. To make the shaft of the quill, I used translucent polymer clay and baked that for 10 minutes too. I used black polymer clay to sculpt the quill. When the shaft was baked and cool, I added it to the feather, bonding with liquid clay, and also added a small piece of translucent clay at the end of the shaft. Give your quill some movement and bake for 20 to 30 minutes. Once your inkwell is cool, cover the sides with more translucent polymer clay and add a small ring of clay around the hole. Next, make a simple lid from black polymer clay and bake for 20 to 30 minutes. Once cool, I painted the lid with gold alcohol ink. Paint the inside of the bottle with black acrylic paint and add some stains on the outside. The bottle may not be completely see-through, but it does look like frosted glass. You can stain the tip of the quill and the lid as well. Then you want to glaze everything, and if you want to add highlights or reflections on the bottle, you can use a small amount of white paint and glaze it again. To make the travel size cauldron, I cut out a circle of black polymer clay. I wrapped the circle around a metal bowl tool, but you can use a marble too, and removed the excess. Next I made a slit on the cauldron and baked it like that for 15 minutes. To remove it from the bowl tool, it has to be completely cool, and you're going to need some water, and after sliding a blade on the slit, gently pull them apart. Next I wrapped a metallizing nozzle with black clay and measured where the top of the cauldron would reach so I could trim the excess clay. Now trim the top as straight as you can. Bake it for 10 or 15 minutes, and once cool, blend some clay in the joint. After baking it for another 10 minutes, add it to the bottom of the cauldron, bonding with female liquid, and bake again. Once cool, add a strip of black clay on the joint and bake again. Lastly, add a couple of handles with jump rings if you like, and bake one last time. Yay! To make a base or stand for the cauldron, I shaped a headpin around the handle of my knife and trimmed the excess until it looked like a giant jump ring. And for the feet, I also used headpins. I trimmed the excess and curled the ends. Then I glued them to the ring with super glue. To make a simple handle from wire, I shaped a headpin around the handle of my knife and closed the ends of the wire around the jump rings. To make the spare sheets of parchment, I used paper that I had previously dyed with tea, but you can use any paper you want, and basically made sheets that folded into 6 rectangles. I tore them by hand to get a more rustic look, but you can use scissors if you prefer. And you can make these in any size you want. To make a scroll, I cut a strip of paper in the same way and used a Tealight to burn the edges. As soon as the paper starts to burn, remove it from the flame and blow it out. Then knock all the excess off and make a handle by trimming a toothpick and painting it with acrylic paints. Glaze it to protect the paint, and once dry, glue it to the paper. As it dries, add more glue and roll the parchment. Then secure it with a piece of string. Next on our school supplies list is a telescope, which I made from black polymer clay. I dusted it with bronze mica powders, but you can use eyeshadows too, and baked it for 10 minutes. When it was cool, I trimmed the end and added 2 strips of clay bonding with female liquid. Douse that clay as well and bake again. Add a few more details with black clay and bake one last time. Once cool, paint the wider end black and glaze it to seal in the powders and the paint. If we were on our first year at Hogwarts, we'd be told to bring a toad, a cat or an owl. So for our next supply, if you can call it that, I'll be making a toad, which from now on I'll be calling Trevor. To make Trevor, I use Cernit polymer clay in a flesh tone colour, but you can use any colour you want. I'm using this clay because it's a doll making clay and it's very strong and it's slightly translucent. If you'd like to see a bigger version of this, I do have a tutorial showing how to sculpt a frog, because I do understand that this one is quite small and it may not be that easy to see. I try not to edit this one too much so you could see the whole process, even if it's quite simple and quick compared to the big one. I left the hands and feet quite thick looking because otherwise they would have been too prone to breaking, especially in my hands, and to make the skin look coarser I poked lots of tiny holes. Once baked and cool, I painted him green first, then blended yellow on his belly. Next I applied dark green on the extremities and brown on his back. To make the crystal ball, I mixed translucent and purple polymer clay by twisting the clay and then rolling it into a ball so that the colours weren't completely blended and you got a more swirly effect. I did that 3 times and then baked it for 10 minutes. In the meantime, I coated the inside of a metal bead cap with Fimo liquid and filled it with black clay until it squeezed out the other end. I trimmed the excess and added the cool crystal ball on top, bonding with Fimo liquid. Bake it for 30 minutes and once cool, glaze it for a beautiful shine. I applied a second coat with purple mica powders mixed in for a pearled and more mysterious finish. You can find links to my mini spellbooks and skull tutorials in the description, as well as other Harry Potter and fantasy videos. If you liked this tutorial and would love to see more fantasy stuff, maybe not as long as this one, give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to my channel, do subscribe and turn on the notifications. I wouldn't want you to miss when I upload. If you were inspired to recreate one of my pieces, please share it with me using the hashtag Maive Ferrando on Instagram. I love to see what you guys make following my tutorials. Thank you all so much for watching. I love you all very much and I'll see you all next time. Bye! Ciao ciao!